literally nail biting right now, and not 2025 was, and I do not foresee 2026 being any different. It is a nail biter. You have owners yelling at you, wanting to know why you have nothing. You have the data showing it's just the booking window getting shorter. They have to be patient. So many times people want to just lower the rate, just low. So finding that sweet spot and everything. So the more views of a situation you can look at, the more knowledge and data you have to make sure you're picking the right time to take the right actions.
We're obviously in a partnership with our owners. We're, in a sense, really a marketing company for them, right? Like that's ultimately what we're doing. We're trying to sell their product. However, if the consumer doesn't like the ingredients that that product is made of, I'm not going to be able to sell it. So sometimes
Mhm.
we have to say, hey, instead of that corn syrup, let's go back to real sugar, right? And
Yeah.
so again, just use a food analogy there. But I think being able to have those honest and open conversations with owners is critical to not only their success but ultimately ours as well.
So keeping the shorter booking windows in mind, first and foremost, I'm monitoring that pacing very close side by side with both last year in the market, not just at the top level, but broken down by bedroom count, property type, getting into the specific segments. And this is my foundation. This is immediately going to show me where I'm winning or where I'm losing a little bit. So my Q1 strategy definitely starts with that baseline.
Welcome to RevLabs by PriceLabs.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Masterclass. This is our RevLabs by PriceLabs Masterclass. We're really excited today. Today, we're going to be talking about setting 2026 up for success and learning from 2025. So we're going to give it a few minutes in here. Make sure I shared my right screen. Get that screen share back up for us. Here we go. Now, we're going to let some people trickle in real quick. It's going to take just a few moments. We'll get started up here in about a minute. A little bit of housekeeping to start off for you, if you don't mind. Let's get on to this. My name's Kyle Driskell. I'm a senior solutions consultant with PriceLabs, and I have the pleasure of being your host today. I'm also joined by my wonderful teammate, Aditya. He's one of our fantastic product specialists. So anytime you need support, when you reach out to our chat, when you reach out to our support at pricelabs.co, there's a good chance that you're going to run into somebody like Aditya, somebody that's super, super talented, very, very helpful. So Aditya, thank you for joining us today. He's going to be answering any questions you've got as we go through this podcast. Now, if you don't mind, you've got two options in Zoom where you can put questions. Number one is Q&A area. So if you can, please put those questions in Q&A so that we can get to those quickly. But you can also throw them into the chat. That will be monitored. Just make it a little bit easier if we're looking at that Q&A area, though. And give it another moment or two as people trickle in here. We've got a nice audience already. If you don't mind, should be a little bit of interactive with the chat. Put maybe how many properties you've got, where you're located, and then who knows, maybe we find a friend in that chat as well. So, and then we will go ahead and get ourselves started up here in just a second. As you know, you're here for RevLabs by PriceLabs. PriceLabs is one of the leading dynamic pricing and revenue management solutions. We currently price almost 600,000 properties across the globe. We're available all across the globe. We've got a fully remote team headquartered in Chicago. I'm based in Knoxville, Tennessee. We've got pretty much everybody across the globe here. So now this is what's the main point of this. And I'm super, super excited to be joined today by Meg Park, senior consultant. I almost called you a senior solutions consultant like me, Meg. Senior consultant with VRM Advocate. You all will absolutely love Meg. So let's start with you, Meg, if you'll introduce yourself to the audience real quick, and then we'll move on to Rick.
Sure, Kyle. Thanks a lot. I am Meg Park. I work with VRM Advocate. We are a consulting agency who does everything from coaching, teaching, and full hands-on revenue management. We currently have work with destinations across the nation. So we have a wide variety of views of what's happening in different destinations and seeing the variances between that. Personally, I have worked in the vacation industry for over 20 years. 13 and a half of those years were on Hilton Head Island here in South Carolina.
It's awesome. Thank you for joining us, Meg. I'm super excited. And as you all will learn as we have this podcast, Meg has one of the most wonderful personalities in this industry. So really looking forward to this episode.
It's all about fun.
Exactly. And we're gonna put a cap on this with Aaron here shortly, but I'm gonna switch over to Rick Jernigan, who's the revenue manager with Brett Robinson Vacation Rentals down in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Rick, introduce yourself to the audience if you don't mind.
Hey, good morning, and thanks for having me. My name is Rick Jernigan, and as Kyle just mentioned, I'm one of the revenue managers on the team at Brett Robinson. We operate primarily down on the Gulf Coast, so really kind of have a big cornerstone down here in Orange Beach, Gulf Shores area. We're one of the largest in the Southeast as far as operators go. We operate and currently manage over 1,800 units. And most of that is going to be in the condo sector. We do also have some hotels that we manage, as well as some, mid to higher end beach homes as well. But again, pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Rick. And then our third guest is Mr. Aaron Addison. He's a Smoky Mountain guy like I am, revenue manager with VRM Advocate. Aaron, if you don't care to introduce yourself as well, and then we'll get going.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm excited to be here. I began my career in the industry in 2023 here in Gatlinburg in business development, and very quickly moved my way into revenue management. Had about 400 properties in the area, and then a bit later picked up an additional 200 down in Rick's neck of the woods in Orange Beach, Gulf Shores area. Fast forward to today, I'm a proud member of the VRM Advocate team. I get to work with Meg and all kinds of awesome people every day. Currently doing revenue management, got some accounts in Florida, coastal properties, and as well as ski areas in Montana.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Aaron. Meg, Rick, thank you for joining us. Really looking forward to this conversation. Now, it's the end of the year. We've got a couple of little pockets in here where we can still get some nice bookings. We've got Thanksgiving, very, very last minute bookings. Still got the opportunity with Christmas and with New Year's. But ultimately, we want to take this conversation today, learn from 2025, talk about how we can improve in 2026. How do we work towards achieving those peak bookings? How can we improve our communication with our owners, and how to set 2026 up really for success? Now, this is all very, very important because a lot of shifts have happened in the market. We've seen a lot of changes with lengths of stays, a lot of changes with booking windows as well. Generally speaking, kind of across the board with the US, we see a lot of changes with booking windows getting shorter. Demand's a little bit more volatile. Depending on the market you're in, you might have some crazy cool events coming up in 26 that you need to plan for. But ultimately, your strategy's got to be a little flexible. And hopefully what we take out of today is some key learnings from 2025, how to put those into our 2026 goals, and then how to make adjustments from there as well. So let me click over here. So our agenda today is going to be really, really focused on just understanding what 2025 taught us, specifically about guest behavior. How do we take our results and get some direction for 2026 from there? Also, how to communicate those strategies to the owners, and then ultimately just preparing for 2026 and some of those key takeaways as well. Now, we do have a poll that's popped up here. So you're going to have a couple of these, but if you don't mind, just take a second, give us your response on that poll, just so we know kind of where you're sitting at with your 2026 plans. Do you have your goals finalized already? Are you currently in the process? Are you just now getting the ball rolling with it? Or have you not even started yet and you're kind of saying like, hey, this is going to be our starting point? Now, for 2025, just some overall topics, and this is kind of based fully on the United States, like the whole market. So I think we know if you get into different markets, you're going to have different data that you see. But overall, the United States has seen lead times get a little bit shorter. Now, this is taking in, the properties that are in cities like Chicago, taking in those beach towns, taking in ski towns, all of that. Length of stay has been pretty stable, but demand has kind of changed a little bit, and it's usually coming in a little bit later. We're also seeing some volatility around pricing, but we are still seeing some similar averages as well. And then ultimately it really matters based on the market that you're in. Now, let's hop over here. And looking at the United States, specifically lengths of stay and booking windows, we've seen those get a little bit shorter. Nothing crazy, no big changes, but kind of what we're looking at right here. The gray is going to be 2 years ago. Red is going to be last year. Pink is going to be this year. So for our booking windows across the board in the US, we're seeing that they're getting a little bit tighter. Now, when we go in and we take a look at the United Kingdom also as an example, very similar trends. Year over year over year, the booking window is getting a little bit tighter on average. Now, again, we know you've got a super upper echelon type of property, your booking window is still going to be further out. But generally speaking, in these markets, we're seeing them get really tight. When we look at France, kind of the similar thing, very much changed over here, especially as we get into those peak seasons. August, we've gone from roughly 70 to about 60 days out as a booking window. So we've given a nice little summary here of what we've seen happening in the market. But now I want to stop talking because this isn't about me, it's about our attendees. And I want to start with you, Meg. What have you seen over 2025 that has really shifted when it comes to the guest behavior? And I'll give you a moment or two to chit chat about that.
Well, I mean, you pointed out some of the biggest things we're seeing, right? There's definitely significant changes on the how close to arrival people, your booking window is definitely seeing shifts. And the variances are purely on destination, though. That's what's so amazing. When you have markets that have high repeat guests, so many vendors nowadays have already in place these programs from a marketing perspective to get the guests to book earlier and earlier. And I would encourage people to definitely work on that. But you still have a lot of these last minute travelers that are looking for the shorter stays, probably below minimums that you've never ever seen before. We've seen a lot of shift in minimum rates, what you have set in your PriceLabs system. It would be good for people to go through and review those. I know sometimes you have ones that are owner set, but just look at what your minimum rates are set at, whether they're seasonal mins or not, that you may need to do a little 5% tweak and stuff like that. The other thing, though, that I'm seeing a lot of, which is what the guest expects, right? There's more of this, what is the value I'm getting for my money? And they're getting a little bit harsher when it comes to the cleanliness and what is included. So I've seen a lot of our clients and people in the industry like trying to add these extra amenities, like what do you get for free? What don't you get for free? Or what can you offer or do as an add-on sale during your time? And, I think as the industry has grown so rapidly due to the impact of what the pandemic did to us, we have all these new people who are still so used to hotels and the way hotels operate. And we're seeing a lot more of those needs or those desires coming into the vacation rental industry. And then, of course, outside of guests are your homeowner expectations and having that conversation with them. That's been a hot topic for this year as well.
Absolutely. Have you seen any markets that you work in particular where it's a little bit more, the expectations are a little bit more heavy? And as background, if you also don't care to talk about where VRM Advocate kind of works right now, because you are national, full national.
Yeah. It's the leisure markets is where I think the expectations are higher, and the luxury, right? Redefining luxury. It is important, that if you say you have luxury, that you truly have luxury and what that stands for and what that sees. And they're the ones I think that are getting the greatest impacts. Urban markets, we have a client in Washington, D.C. That is an entity unto itself. It's Washington, D.C., high percentage of foreign travel, which has been impacted, economic issues, which has been impacted, and honestly, some safety issues a little bit we're seeing as well. Just the nature of Washington, D.C., I think it's different. But even in other cities like Chicago and New York, there is not necessarily those safety concerns, but there is really these last minute work travel, business travel is rebounding in the urban markets a little bit. So making sure that you are showing up from an organic or SEO perspective for that, as well as making sure you track your rates against the hotels. They're your main competitions in urban markets a lot of times, and you have to pay attention. Larger corporations like your Marriotts and Hiltons, they're free, right? They just want heads and beds. That doesn't always work in vacation rentals. But ski markets, your leisure markets for ski out in the West and the Rockies and everything, I think they struggle, but they're actually, from what we're seeing, rebounding very, very well. Probably a little bit better than what we're seeing in your beach destinations. But Rick, you can probably talk to the beach destinations a little bit and what you guys are seeing when it comes to that, either repeat guests. I think your area has a high percentage of repeat guests. You pull a lot out of that Georgia, Atlanta area down, which is a short trip. Are you seeing a lot of people coming for long weekends or anything like that?
It's very much, thank you, Meg. It's very much kind of a mixed bag. And I would say almost we're seeing a little bit more of a divide with that, right? Like we have our historical, vacationers that come down, and that repeat is crucial, I think, for success, specifically in the larger to higher end segments, right? So think higher, larger bedroom categories, more luxury, and being able to capture that repeat business, I think, is crucial for their success. But then we've almost seen a little bit more of kind of like the adverse of that, right? We're also very much a drive-in destination. So with that in mind, the booking windows have definitely shifted. Things are, moving in a little bit closer. So I think being able to understand those different dynamics, what the consumer is looking for, I think is obviously key to setting the stage for 2026. Meg, you kind of touched on something, and obviously I think price sensitivity is one of the first topics that come to mind in 2025. And, while I would say it's fair that that's probably always a topic of good conversation, I would almost, at least for our market, I felt like it was a little bit more hypersensitive. And with that in mind, like day to day, I mean, like it is literally that different in terms of what a consumer is willing to pay, for their stay. And, another thing, Meg, that I think you kind of hit on that really, I think, resonates with 2025 as a whole. We've seen a continued growth in available inventory within our market, really coming out of COVID, right? So you pair that along with everything that's also going on more from a, global economic standpoint, the consumer's perception of value is, I think, at its highest point ever, probably for our market. So being able to really understand that, understand who is your target demographic, understand what unit are they coming to, how can we market better to them? How can we make sure that we're priced better? You kind of mentioned as well, Meg, like doing a portfolio review this year, I think at this point in time for all operators is absolutely critical. But, I think year over year, it's normal for us, oh, well, let's push a little bit and that's how we're going to grow revenue. There honestly may be some instances where we have to take that hard look internally and say, hey, are we overpricing this unit? Is the value in the market shifted now to where we perhaps need to readjust our rate? And you kind of touched on the minimums and everything, Megan. I think that that's 100% dead on. So, I think just kind of piggyback on some of the great points that were already made. That's really, I think, kind of what we're seeing right now. And I think our key takeaways for our market area from 2025 going into 2026.
So have you made any shifts in your the availability window? Meaning like, traditionally a lot of operators will say, oh, on our OTAs, you have to book more than 2 days in advance, and then the calendar's kind of blocked on the OTAs. Have you made any shifts in those settings?
So great question. I think for us, no, we're actually, we allow same day bookings.
Okay.
And a lot of that too is also, just driven, I think, by our portfolio diversification. We have some hotels. So we're honest, we're the size and from an operations perspective where we can do that. So that has continued to be, I think, extremely beneficial for us, specifically as weather demands kind of dictate, hey, let's go take a little 3-weekend getaway, what have you. But I will kind of go into that one step further, though. I think LOS settings, right? And I think getting a little bit further ahead than what we typically have had to do historically was a big part of our success internally this year in 2025. And by that, going back to spring is when we really kind of started to see, okay, again, every year something new. This year, this is kind of what we're expecting. We're probably going to need to go a little bit more conservative and really try to drive occupancy this year than we probably honestly had initially anticipated. And so with that in mind, it was, reviewing that hypersensitivity. Where is the demand truly in our market and where's it not? And where it is low, going ahead and making those adjustments in the spring for the rest of the year, right? Setting it up, are there some time periods where we should allow, perhaps a lower minimum stay length requirement, et cetera. And I think that was pretty beneficial as well for us.
Real quick, I want to get Aaron in on this as well, and get your take on what you've seen in 2025. And Aaron, was there anything that maybe mid 2025 you looked at and you adjusted quickly, or anything that you experienced in 2025 that's really going to benefit you getting ahead in 2026?
Oh, absolutely. I've got to agree with Meg and Rick on this one that the biggest shift I'm seeing is when guests are showing up and not necessarily whether they're showing up or not. So mid 2025, looking at the Florida Keys specifically, that's when I started to notice the shortening booking windows, and I was able to lean into some last minute rate reductions in a pretty big way there to get the calendars filled.
Awesome. Now
Uh,
you're, oh, sorry, Aaron,
Go
didn't mean to
ahead.
step
No,
on you.
no, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, because the markets that you're in, they're going to be pretty heavily, skewed with spring break. So like spring break's going to
Mhm.
be coming up really, really quickly. How are you approaching 2026's spring break a little bit differently than you did 2025 based on what you've seen with 2025?
So I'm looking first and foremost at pacing to see if anything looks off. That's going to tell me where I may be a little soft or maybe a little too aggressive that far out. And I'm going ahead and preparing myself to make those changes right now instead of waiting until later.
Awesome. Yeah. So
Yeah.
just making sure that you're ready and
Mhm.
ready to go when that booking window hits.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely.
real quick, I'm gonna share my screen up again real quick, and I want to show you inside of PriceLabs where you can go to gather some of this information. So, oh, there we go. Well, went too far back. All right. So the main areas that you kind of want to get into with PriceLabs, it's going to be your neighborhood data. We're not going to hop into market dashboards and get really, really granular with it, but you do have market dashboards as well. I want to hop over here, and we're going to go into a listing in Chicago. And right up here, you've got neighborhood data. So hopefully you're familiar with this. But if you're not, this is a really, really useful area in PriceLabs. And this is going to be kind of that overall view of what's happening in the market. And what Aaron was talking about with pacing, you're going to see right here on your occupancy chart. Now, specifically for Chicago, it's a very last minute market. Most urban markets are, but what you're looking at is the trends overall that are happening. So anytime you come in here and you look at your occupancy, if you see the red line below that gray line, it means the occupancy is behind. And if the red line's on top of the gray line, it means occupancy is performing well. So like right here, we can see that the market for this Christmas time period in Chicago is down about 13%. Being aware of where this is in PriceLabs and kind of being able to make sure that you're staying on top of this is going to be really, really important as you get into 2026. So one other area that you've got in here also is your market history. So if for some reason you're in a market and you're not really sure what's happened with the booking windows, you can come right here, click on your market booking windows, and see how those changes have happened. Now, you may have 1 year or 2 years worth of data here. You can click and change that right there if you want to, but all of this will be very, very useful for you. So I want to get out of the PriceLabs, the view, but I did want to show you where you can see some of this information. So now kind of sticking with getting ready for 2026, getting 2025's data and using that. Rick, what data points are you really, really looking at to get 2026 in line? Maybe there's something that you're putting a little bit more emphasis on this year. Aaron, it kind of sounded like you're focusing heavily on occupancy right now. Obviously, ADR as well, but occupancy is one of those metrics that we're going to be taking a look at. Rick, is there anything from your side?
I mean, Aaron just kind of hit on it. Honestly, it's going to be pacing. I think is your key indicator, right? And every year brings new challenges. We were just speaking about spring break, so understanding, shifting holidays is always fun, right? Like spring break is a new animal. I feel like every single year. So really, truly trying to understand and dive into, whether school calendars, family calendars, et cetera, and understanding, what's our anticipated demand drivers here. So I think looking at that, but even now, I would encourage you be forward looking, forward planning, looking at where we're starting to see even the smallest pops, of pacing information. That, in my opinion, is an absolute key indicator of where demand signals lie, right? And so we've spent a lot of time internally at Brett Robinson. I would say the back half of this year, honestly diving into demand indicators. And so for us, that's where a lot of this truly lies, and kind of getting even, I think, beyond the scope of some of the averages. Obviously, I think some of the most crucial pacing, occupancy, making sure that you have the correct ADR, et cetera. But I think even too, like understanding what is going on with the average travel consumer right now, where are they at potentially from an economic standpoint, So I would encourage, folks, look outside of just the average, indicators and maybe even kind of take it a little bit deeper and really try to understand more demand indicators now. I think that that will give you a better snapshot of a clear strategy moving forward and perhaps where we need to be from a price standpoint now, versus position. So yeah, I think all of that's important, but I think again for us, just stay on top of outside demand indicators is probably how I would say it, or almost secondary, right? Some of the things that we may not always think about.
And
Absolutely.
be
How about
aware of the new ones as they're coming in, because that's what ends up happening.
100%.
oh. So Meg, what are you kind of looking at in 2026? Is there anything you're focusing on more so this year coming up than you did last year?
I think one of the things that shifted in a number of the destinations I at was actually length of stay. And I know that we talk a lot about the average length of stay for a portfolio as a whole, but looking a little bit deeper and looking at maybe property sizes, I do see growth in some destinations in length of stay, right? There is like this 2-week stay or a 10-day stay that we see a lot of people wanting to do. If they take one vacation a year, they make it a big one, right? But then you still have that area of the population that's doing multiple vacations during the year, and they're the ones that are kind of doing a little bit of the shorter ones. So length of stay is one. I do laugh, Rick, that you brought up about the school calendars. That is something I used to do every year. It was a report that I would actually pull, like where does our consumer or visitors come from, and go in and seeing the variance. You can really, a lot of that is missed opportunity though, right? Like Atlanta does have sometimes a March spring break, not the traditional before and after Easter. And there's other areas around that do that as well. Colleges, if you're in that kind of a destination that draws in a lot of college travelers, not that you want a lot of spring breakers, but some people do. But, so paying attention to that. And then honestly, outside of revenue management, there's a lot of other data points that I look at that do greatly impact your marketing efforts. What does your website traffic look like? I do feel that they play a lot in how you set up your revenue strategy for the year going forward, and reviewing what changes happened year over year in the past.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you on that one. And Aaron, how about you? What are you kind of seeing that you might be focusing on a little bit more? I know I kind of hit at occupancy earlier, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'd rather get it from you.
No, you're
What are
fine.
we focusing on?
Yeah, so this year drove home a couple of important things for me. The first takeaway is looking at the volatility itself. I mean, when guests are booking later, those shifts in pacing start to mean a lot more, right? So, for example, if you're 2 or 3 points behind in a 60 to 90-day window, it's annoying, but it's manageable. However, on the flip side, if you're 2 or 3 points behind in a 15 to 30-day window, it starts to become a real nail biter. So that same variance is now a little more consequential because we have a little less runway in front of us. Second big takeaway I would say is to not pay so much attention to the macro averages we're seeing. I am seeing those numbers translate to a lot of the markets I'm in, but I do have to remind myself that revenue decisions are made on a more micro level. For example, a ski in, ski out unit in Big Sky, Montana is going to behave a lot differently than a home that requires a shuttle to get to and from the slopes. So that being said, if we're relying on that macro view alone, it's going to be really easy to misread the elasticity and true compression of the neighborhoods or property types we're focusing on.
Yeah, and that leads to a really good point, I think, and that segmenting is super important when it comes to planning 2026. And one, knowing the guest you're targeting, but knowing the properties that you have as well. Now, real quick, I want to. Oh, go ahead, Meg.
Sorry, I just want, that's probably one of the biggest questions we get from clients is like, how do you segment? What's the best way to segment? And
Yeah.
For me, I mean, a single property can be in multiple segments if it's a valuable source of information. So like, don't be afraid to include a property in multiple. It's just all different views. Don't do it just by bedroom. Sometimes it's just by view. Like, so having multiple segments for the same property is also, I think, an important thing to do. And even going to be even more important, like Aaron said, as we're moving into 2026 because of the variance in the different demand levels for each kind of property.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love for us to schedule a masterclass just
I
on
think,
segmentation. I think it would be super, super beneficial. So
oh
maybe
yeah.
we'll have that. Maybe we'll have one of those here pretty soon as well. Um, so Meg, getting into 2026, how are you looking at segmentation differently than maybe you did 25? Or is it pretty much the same thing that you're doing right now?
I think I think what it is there's still a little bit of this coming off the pandemic. And I think we got a little lazy during the pandemic because the demand was so high. In traditional speaking, demand goes up, you can raise the rents, maybe your occupancy go down. The pandemic was indifferently. Occupancy up, demand was up, ADR up. And I'm not talking small single digit percentages. We're talking massive percentages. There used to be a stat prior to the pandemic that the market saturation for vacation rentals was running about 18-19% in overall accommodations, and that we would be lucky if by 2030 that we had got over 20, and we're well over 20 now, right? So that rapid growth is, and I think people got lazy, and that's why going back to some of the old time methods, the old things before, I mean, I did revenue management before there was platforms like PriceLabs. I was the queen of the Excel and breaking things out. And I think it's just important that people pay attention to it and kind of think through things. And we have to get a little bit more detail oriented and pay a little bit of sharpen our pencils a little bit more when it comes to breaking out our inventory and not assuming. Don't assume all the time. Make sure if you're like, go ahead and look. Maybe it was a waste of your time to look, but look at it anyway. Look at that view from that segment differently. That just maybe will show something and answer your questions. It is literally nail biting right now. And not 2025 was, and I do not foresee 2026 being any different. It is a nail biter. You have owners yelling at you, wanting to know why you have nothing. You have the data showing it's just the booking window getting shorter. They have to be patient. So many times people want to just lower the rate, so finding that sweet spot and everything. So the more views of a situation you can look at, the more knowledge and data you have to make sure you're picking the right time to take the right actions.
That's fantastic, and that leads really well into kind of the next topic I wanted to kind of hit on, and I'm going to go over to you, Rick, for this one, if you don't mind. How has your the need to communicate to owners, and then the actual processes, how has that evolved? Specifically over the last year, but do you see that there's even more emphasis on that need for owner communication?
100%. I think every year as we continue to evolve, I think as an industry, the level of communication, and I think not only that, what our owners are expecting in terms of professional communication, I think grows. And so, looking at 2025 versus 2026, I don't know that our communication strategy is really going to change. So for us, we typically do we do two full owner meetings every single year. Then we also break it down, and we're kind of unique where again we manage a lot of condos, so we typically will have a lot of units within specific buildings. So we'll actually even break down and start doing building specific meetings for that segment of owners, that group of owners. And so we do that throughout the year. And then obviously, of course, we also try to leverage every channel that we can, right? Our website, our owners portals, we're constantly putting out criteria and information on there and really trying to be as proactive as possible, right? If I can avoid that owner making a call in to my owner support team, that's a win. And so we try to really look at every opportunity, every shift within the market. How can we go ahead and try to over communicate, get that information into their heads where they truly understand that? The more that they're leveraged and understand what we know, the better. I think it's so easy though for all of us in this space because we're all such data nerds, really. We kind of get in there and look at it, but then we also maybe perhaps assume that owners and other people, because they're also kind of an extension of this, right? That they know what we know, and that's not always the case. So again, start with why I think is crucial for us. The education piece, really helping them understand as we continue to navigate heading into 2026 right now. And Meg, I share your sentiment on 2026. It's going to be another nail biter. I mean, that's kind of what we're expecting. And so for us now, I think setting that stage for the owners, hey guys, it's kind of what we just went through in 2025. We're expecting 2026 to honestly be about the same, if not even a little bit more shaky. So, really kind of going in there from a, I think an occupancy perspective in certain situations, et cetera. Just helping them, I think, overall understand what is our strategy, what are our expectations heading into 2026, as well as what are the potential pain points where we might have to pivot. So I think the more that we can also set them up for that, and even perhaps let them know, hey guys, right around springtime, we're really going to have a good grasp on what our summer demand patterns are looking like, et cetera, whatever that may be. I think it's advantageous for operators to set kind of a high level time for owners to understand this is going to be kind of the check-in point. And what that does for us as operators, that helps buy us a little bit of time, because right now things are a little bit slow for us, right? Like my higher end inventory is booking, but outside of that, it's not in my prime booking window yet. However, that doesn't stop that owner that's looking at 2026 and they don't have a lot of revenue yet. That doesn't stop them from calling. So how can I buy myself some time, help them understand all of that? So really, I think that's overall the mentality. And I'm sorry, I kind of got on a
No, we
on
love
a
it.
tangent there.
That's the best part of these, when you
Right.
get to hear that passion, and that's why we picked the three of you. You were all
Okay.
passionate. So, Aaron, my next question is kind of for you. I want to do the same focus, like how important do you see owner communication? But I want to add one other thing to it. We've got a poll up right now that is asking how often you share portfolio performance updates to your owners. We've got about half of the audience has responded, and half of those that have responded have either responded only when asked or not consistent yet. So, as an add-on to that question, Aaron, if you don't mind answering, just how important do you think proactive communication needs to be getting in 2026 for your guests, or
Uh,
not for your guests, for your homeowners?
Very important. I'd say that in today's market, at least a newsletter going out monthly is going to be the right cadence. Markets are shifting a little bit quicker, so you can't really wait 3 months to tell an owner what's going on, because by then the dynamic has already changed, right? So doing that does a few things really well. Number one, it keeps owners informed before they start becoming anxious. Number two, it gives you an opportunity to kind of guide the expectations there, and overall it makes for conversations to go a lot smoother when things do suddenly change, because you've already kept them in the loop. So in doing so, I like to send some updated reports so they can get all the data in kind of a clean, branded way, and then layer on an explanation. To Rick's point, not all of them are educated and they're not looking at the same things that we're looking at every day. So kind of give them an explanation in layman's terms of what worked, what didn't, and what we're doing about it.
Awesome. And then the same question for you, Meg. How do you, for those folks that aren't necessarily being proactive right now, how important do you think it is for them to be a little bit more proactive in their communication, especially with you knowing that the market's going to be kind of volatile this year?
The pandemic, well, everybody's seeing this, right? The homeowner is different. It used to be a lot, especially in the leisure destinations. It used to be grandma and grandpa, they bought a house because they wanted the whole family, or maybe somebody bought a house because they were going to retire. That's not what our homeowner is right now. These are savvy business people. And in their businesses, they expect some kind of reporting. And that's why it is absolutely, we have to do that. We have to communicate. Not only that, but, newsletters are great. I hear a lot, well, our owners don't read them. They don't look at them, whatever. But in this day and age, there are so many ways. There are property managers out there that actually do videos, which I think is fantastic, because you're actually speaking. They can hear that face to face. See your expressions and see your passion or whatever. And I think the other thing is trust, right? Trust is a huge component of a homeowner and property manager relationship. And if we can show them, like, I wouldn't want my homeowners identifying issues that I haven't identified yet. So if
Yep.
you get ahead of it and you're constantly sharing with them, right? Or make it look like you haven't identified it yet. You may know that it's there. There's nothing worse than getting on a call with an owner and say, "Oh yeah, I know that's there." And they're like, "Well, what have you done about it?" Right? I mean, honestly, if there is one thing people take from this, please communicate with your homeowners and use any means possible. There's just so many ways to do it nowadays that your lives will be so much easier in the long run.
Absolutely. And on that note, real quick, I am going to share my screen up again. and I'm going to show you what PriceLabs has kind of been working on for you. So over the past year, we initially started off by building out a report builder tool for you to where you can go in there and you can just see all of your data kind of in one place. That's going to be over here in your portfolio analytics. So right there, you can build out your own reports for internal consumption. If you want to, you could send some stuff out there. You've got a really useful template right here that I absolutely love. It's called opportunities. And that opportunities report will allow you to look if you've got a homeowner that blocks their calendar or uses their property a lot. You can go there and kind of put a dollar value on those days that they're using. It's great for communicating ahead of time, but we didn't have anything that was specific to owners. So I do want to point out over here, PriceLabs has a new product that's coming out in beta. It's owner analytics. These are going to be individual reports for your homeowners. I don't have an estimated date of when this will be out, but it should be very, very soon to you. But this is going to be the answer for you in getting that out there. You're going to be able to customize it, put your KPIs in there that you want to share, and ultimately get ahead of that communication, be able to schedule out things if you want to. Obviously, you can schedule them to your own email so that you can look over things and then curate the conversation and not just send out data to your owners, but you have those abilities now. Now, right above owner analytics, I missed this earlier, and I should have brought this up when Aaron was talking about it, when we were talking about pacing. I showed you the neighborhood data area where you can see the market data, but if you want to compare yourself to yourself, you're going to want to come here in pacings report. So if you're not familiar with our portfolio analytics suite, come in there and tinker around a little bit. And if you find that you've got some questions, reach out to our support team. We're happy to show you around and help you out with that. Now, done with the sales side of that, let's get back into our conversation. And with this one, we're going to go into, I'm going to start with you, Meg, if you don't mind. Oh, let's go.
I'm awake.
How do you go about explaining some of these changing patterns to homeowners? Like not necessarily that ADR is down or the market shifting, but how do you have those conversations about length of stay and booking windows and the overall international travel and what's happening with money? How do you have that conversation with a homeowner?
You know, honestly, like I said, our homeowners are pretty savvy nowadays. I haven't had to coach any of my clients really through having those difficult. They people expect it and they read, they know what's going on with the news. They just want reassurances, like I said, that we know what it is. But I think I used to always say, kill them with data, right? That was the best approach with any kind of homeowner is kill them with data. So taking a snapshot, maybe from the report builder or some other screen within PriceLabs, sharing that and saying, look, this is what I'm seeing with a brief explanation of how you do it. I think that has always been what's been most successful for me. I always include in any communication, and I know it's time consuming, 4 or 5 bits of data points that kind of explain the situation. I've even gone as far at one time back in the 2017, 2018 data range, the economic conditions in the United States were somewhat similar, not anywhere near what we were now, but that was also a very difficult economic time. And it was all about value for the dollar and for our guests and also for our homeowners. And I remember at that time, I literally would actually share links. I would do an email and I would share links to 2 or 3 articles from top news organizations or in travel industry things that were literally, it just says, here's some interesting reads. And it kind of like was a subtle message to them that we're on top of it, but also sharing that data points with them. Being proactive, and I can't say this enough, being proactive with your communication just makes the need for those difficult conversations incrementally smaller and smaller.
Absolutely agree with that.
And honesty. Let me say, Kyle, always be honest.
Yeah.
Even if it's not good news, just be honest. Because once we go back to that trust factor.
I 100% agree with that. Thank you for adding that one in there, Meg. Trust is key when it comes to doing pricing and taking care of somebody else's property, even outside of the revenue management side. It's absolutely key. Rick, kind of the same thing. How do you go about communicating it? And specifically, how do you go about communicating it when you know that things are changing, like that the guests are booking a little bit later? They're trying to find 2-night stays rather than the typical 3-4 night stay that your homeowner may be used to.
I'm going to use the analogy that we always try to plant the seed, knowing that in a month or two, this is going to be a tree that I'm going to need to come back to. And so Meg kind of hit on it, being proactive, but we see it because we're looking at this data every single day, right? And so once we do start to see those little hiccups, even though this may not fully come to fruition, if I even anticipate that it's a possibility, I try to make sure that we're communicating that with our owners, right? Letting them know, hey, we're seeing this. We're not saying that this is a change in the tide yet, but be aware that it's got our attention. We're watching it, and this may turn into something, in which case, I kind of mentioned earlier, here's our pivot plan, right? Like, here's what we're going to kind of need to do, maybe if this does come to fruition. So I think just kind of looking at it from that standpoint is good. Another point that I just kind of thought of as Meg was, going, was also this, I think it's important too for operators. You got to kind of master and get comfortable sometimes having those hard conversations, because Meg is 100% right. We have to be honest all the time, right? And so I think being able to have some of those conversations, and it's not always easy. I think the operators that can do that and have figured that out also potentially are going to be a little bit more successful because of it. And just to give you an example, we're obviously in a partnership with our owners. We're in a sense really a marketing company for them, right? Like, that's ultimately what we're doing. We're trying to sell their product. However, if the consumer doesn't like the ingredients that that product is made of, I'm not going to be able to sell it. So sometimes we have to say, hey, instead of that corn syrup, let's go back to real sugar, right? And
Yeah.
so again, just use a food analogy there. But I think being able to have those honest and open conversations with owners is critical to not only their success but ultimately ours as well.
I love that analogy, Rick. That was great. Real
Right.
sugar instead of the corn syrup. I love it.
Right.
Now I'm going to switch it up just a little bit, and I do want to come to you, Aaron. And I want us to, we're all experts here. I want us to give some expert tips to the audience. And what do you think is something that our audience can do from now up until maybe mid-December to really set themselves up to be ready to go? And specifically maybe get some nice little wins in Q1. Is there anything you can think of tip wise to prep for that early part of 2026?
In fact, there's a few things I'm doing right now to kind of get ready. So keeping the shorter booking windows in mind, first and foremost, I'm monitoring that pacing very close side by side with both last year and the market, not just at the top level, but broken down by bedroom count, property type, getting into the specific segments. And this is my foundation. This is immediately going to show me where I'm winning or where I'm losing a little bit. So my Q1 strategy definitely starts with that baseline. Second, I'm looking at cleaning up stay restrictions a little bit further out. If we've got long minimums sitting on those early season dates, then it's definitely time to start softening them. So yeah, that being said, with the later booking patterns we're seeing, flexibility is going to be money heading into Q1. And third, to Meg's point, visibility is going to be key as well. Optimizing the listings for OTAs, making sure they're showing up. More often than not, in my experience, these minor changes to your listings help you see conversion before you ever start to change a price. And then third, getting onto the rates. I like to set my strategy to start moving when the market does and still waiting until after that demand shows up. So looking at making some smaller incremental adjustments inside that 30-day booking window, and then maybe getting a little softer on rates or running promotion in that 30 to 60-day window to stimulate some demand.
That's awesome. Those are all incredibly good tips. So really what I kind of took out of that, Aaron, is you're going into 2026 with a really flexible mindset. Like, yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
we've got these goals, but I'm going to pivot away from what that first thought process is to get to those goals. Sounds
Oh,
like.
absolutely. I'm not trying to predict what the shape is going to be for next year, just setting things up in a way that allows me to react quickly when those signals do come in.
I
Yeah.
think it's important that Kyle, that he brought, pivoting, like being able to pivot very fast, right? Whether it's your revenue or your pricing strategy, but me and my passion is I love marketing as well, but also with marketing, having the ability to send out targeted email blasts with very little notice, not relying on someone else maybe to send it out, or whatever it is. I run a social media ad. I'm running Reddit ads for clients now, like all these different formats, but being able to take action very, very quickly when you notice the need is there.
Yep. Absolutely. That swiftness is key for it. And I love talking about the marketing aspect of it as well. And the one thing I think that kind of gets lost when we talk PriceLabs is it's usually rates, it's usually occupancy, but there is a lot more that goes to it. Like that visibility is huge. Like if you really want to achieve maximum revenue, you got to be seen for that to happen. And you've got to do some of the things like what Meg mentioned and reach out to guests and do little things to ultimately really drive that maximum revenue. One of the things, and I'm not gonna screen share or anything like that. I do want to mention that PriceLabs here at the beginning of December is going to be coming out with our listing optimizer,
Love
and
it.
this is a tool. Yeah, it is, man. It's a lot of fun. But basically, what this is going to do, you're going to drop your Airbnb listing ID in there, and you're going to have a analysis of your listing. It's going to look at your
Mhm.
photo content, the consistency of your listing, how it performs. And it's going to give you really, really good insight into whether or not that marketing aspect is taken care of. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to be really, really useful for you. I ran a couple of reports for Meg earlier this week, got some good information out of it. Now, obviously, everything when you first release it, it's going to have little, kinks and things like that you got to work out, but it's going to be super useful for you. Really looking forward to getting that out to everybody.
No,
Now,
just
go ahead.
just one thing I want to say though, what I like about your listing optimizer compared to some other platforms out there is you actually offer suggestions of what the change should be. So many
Yep.
times these platforms just say, "Oh, you need to change this." They don't give you any idea of what to do. You guys actually say your headline should be a little bit like this, and then you can say, "Oh yeah, that looks good." You know what I mean? I love that it actually gives you the tools or gives you the suggestions to actually optimize the listing. So
Well, on that note, I do need to share my screen and kind of show what it looks like. So
sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. You're selling it for me. It's like, all right, here we go. Let's go take a look at it. But it'll pop up right up here in the top right whenever it's ready for you. You've got this optimizer. I've run a couple in here. And just as a quick example, I'm going to click on this one right here. And you can see this is the current title for that. And we look at everything that it has in there and it says, this is a better title for you. Let's call it out that it's an oceanfront home and that it's got private beach access. That's very, very beneficial. Now, I don't think my guy's going to have an issue with me pulling this one up. This is one of my customers, has a fantastic property in Nashville. It comes in and you can see that the primary thing it pulls out is that it's listed for a long time, but it doesn't have a lot of reviews. So it's not just looking at, the little things, it's the whole picture for you. Really excited about this coming out and hope everybody else is as well.
I
So
am
yeah, we're going to get Meg on it and she's going to be rolling pretty soon. Now,
very dangerous.
we have filled this up quite a bit. I do want to show one last thing for you, and that is the AI insights that PriceLabs has for you. So inside of your portfolio analytics, I know like looking at big data can be painful for you, but you can come in here and inside of any of these reports in Report Builder, and in most of the places inside of PriceLabs now, your neighborhood data, your market dashboards, you have this AI insights button right here. Now, I'm going to flip back over here and I'm going to play a quick video just because it takes a little bit for that to load up, but just so you can kind of see, oh, that's fast. Well, you click on AI Insights right there, and then you can type a question in here like, which month contributed the most revenue this year? Does the analysis for us, very quickly identifies July 2025 for you. Very, very simplistic use of the AI stuff, but this is very beneficial as well. Where's RevPAR falling despite my revenue rising? Just with a couple of simple clicks, you can see July 2025 is the answer to that. Now you know you can use that going ahead to 2026, do a little bit of prep there as well. Now I don't
You
want
could
this to just, oh, go ahead, Meg.
you could actually that's giving you how you can communicate with your homeowners as well, if you think about it.
Absolutely is. Yep.
Giving you the
Thank you.
words to use.
Exactly. That's a great point, Meg. Now, I don't want this to just be a PriceLabs thing. Obviously, we're talking PriceLabs revenue management. Let's start with you, Meg. Is there anything that you use outside of PriceLabs to help you plan out the 2026 stuff? Any other data sources, any, secret sauce that you've got in an Excel formula that you're kind of putting together that you're willing to share with the audience, anything
I'm
like
not
that?
giving away my secret sauce, just kidding.
At least not,
Honestly,
at least not without a price tag.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I do spend a lot of time, whether it's a new client or a current client, just getting to know the destination. You know, we have an intake form whenever we start working with a new revenue management client that asks the usual, like, you know, what do you think is your average length of stay? What do they do? You know, when we work with clients, they have so much knowledge and it's a new destination. But at the same time, I always go like to their local travel tourism, you know, DMO or their chamber or whatever it is. And most of those have some kind of stats or reports that I can do and then make a comparison and make sure, like, if the chamber is saying that, oh, your guests come from Ohio, but most of your traffic is coming from Atlanta, there's an opportunity going in there to do that, mostly from a marketing perspective. But I do use a lot of other tools. I do have a lot of newsletters that I subscribe to. So I kind of created this way for data to be fed to me, rather than actually have to seek it out. And so I guess that's probably my biggest secret sauce, is just never stop educating yourself, never stop watching webinars, never stop asking questions, and any opportunity you have, whether it's on a webinar like this to ask questions, or whether it's, you know, setting up a Zoom call with somebody here at VRM Advocate who've all worked and sat in the seats as property managers in different areas of the business. You know, you take that opportunity, go to conferences, do those types of things, just keep educating yourself, because many minds make little work, is something my father used to always say, or still does say. And I just think it's so true that the more you educate and continue to educate yourself, the more knowledge you have, and the easier our jobs kind of get.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're going to get to hopefully a few of the questions that we've got in here, but I do want to ask everybody, Rick, final piece of advice getting into 2026 for the audience. What you got?
Oh man, every year is different, so do not rest your hat on any failures or successes from any of your previous operating years, right? Go into 2026 understanding it's going to be unique at the end of it. I think at this point next year, we're going to look back and say, man, 2026 was different. This is what we, didn't see coming. This is what we saw, etc. But again, just go into it, I think, with an open mind. I think Meg had some amazing points, though. Every resource that's available to you, leave no stone unturned, right? Like, take every opportunity to continue to educate yourself. What is going on in travel in general, from a regional to, macro to micro level, right? And understand how that potentially all can impact, what we do. So again, the only other one that I would probably add on there is, don't leave out AI, right? Like, AI is obviously quickly evolving, probably quicker than we even fully understand. And so how is that too going to impact, what the potential consumer is leveraging whenever they're planning their trips, et cetera. So again, I think just understanding all that. But again, going into 2026, I think understanding I'm going into it with a little bit of caution, to be quite honest. And Meg touched on it earlier. I don't want to say nail biter, but I'm not bullish on 2026. So understand where your key pockets of demand lie, leverage those to your benefit. At the same token, also perhaps lessen your restrictions outside of that. If you've got medium to low demand periods, try to make things as less restrictive as possible. Try to entice people to come and visit and stay at your specific units wherever they may be located, etc. So that's my ultimate advice. But yeah, just it's a new year, new time, new strategies.
Absolutely. And then Aaron, what do we got as your final piece of advice for 2026?
It's kind of hard to top what they just said. I absolutely agree with both of them on that. Definitely stay on top of industry trends, stay educated on what's going on in the market, and enter 2026 cautiously with flexibility in mind.
Awesome. Well, I mentioned that we were going to have a couple of minutes for Q&A, but my guy Aditya was on top of everything. All of our Q&As pretty much taken care of. I do want to go ahead and let you know in regards to some of the things I showed you, they'll be slowly released to customers. If you have interest in this listing optimizer, in those owner reports, reach out to support@pricelabs.co. We'll start the process up for you and get you in there. And we really look forward to it. So those are going to be really exciting releases for us. But we're always trying to build out the tool. If you've got suggestions, you've got things that you think will be beneficial for you, reach out to support@pricelabs.co. help educate us, we're also going to help educate you as well. So with that, I don't think we have too many cues left. We got about 3 minutes to fill. I did want to mention something since we've got this extra time. I saw it come up in the chat, and it was talking about when we were talking about the guests and how expectations are a little bit different. How are you all, and I'll start with you, Aaron, do you see expectations being different from different sources of booking, like from those OTAs? Like, do you see a difference between the Verbo guest versus the Airbnb guest versus the direct guest? And specifically anything that's changed really over the past year with those?
I'm not really seeing any difference in any of my markets across any of the distribution channels. I like trying to kind of look at this from the guest perspective, and then when you start to do that, it kind of makes a lot of sense. You know, there's more supply than there was this time last year in many markets. Pricing is transparent across OTAs. They can shop easier and go with a competitor a lot easier. A lot of downward economic pressures and as well as the nuances in each individual market. So, but yeah, so I'm not really seeing any difference across the OTAs or direct bookings in any of my markets.
It's good to hear. How about you, Rick and Meg? Any differences that you all have picked up on over the past year?
I wouldn't say like anything major outside of, each channel obviously has its own booking patterns, right? I don't feel like we really saw any major influxes or changes with that. If anything, it was probably perhaps a little bit more compounded, specifically like, your channels that book more frequently closer in. We saw, I would say, an uptick this year, right, at those booking platforms and those channels. So it was just more of, I think, just kind of echoed the sentiment that we're seeing within the industry and what the trends are showing us. Whenever you start to kind of dig into that data, you can clearly see where this is where it's coming from, and this is, how it's all getting there at the end of the day. But again, no major swings on any specific channel that I feel is worth calling out. Again, just more of a heightened reinforcement of what the overall trends are displaying and showing us.
We've got about 20 seconds left, Meg, if you got anything else you want to add on that. Sorry for cutting it short.
That's great. I talk fast. Honestly, I don't think there's a big difference in overall percentage of OTA to direct. What I do see a lot of clients doing is actually adding more OTA channels to try to maybe pull away from some of the channels that have been too high of a percentage, like Airbnb. They want to try to lower that percentage, and they're willing to do it on another OTA.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. This
Thank
was
you.
one of my favorite webinars I've done. This crew's got to get put back together. You all were great together. So Meg, Aaron, Rick, thank you all for joining us. Everybody that listened in, thank you for joining us. If you all want to, you can reach out to these folks via LinkedIn. You can find them there. But also, reach out to us, support@pricelabs.co if you have any questions. We're always happy to help you, and we greatly appreciate you taking your time to join us today. So on behalf of the crew here, on behalf of Aditya, on behalf of Shweta, who was wonderful and put all of this together for us, wish I'd given her a shout out at the beginning. Do appreciate you. I'm Kyle. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.